All right, folks, we're all well aware of the sanctions that President Obama has put in place, members of the European community have put in place against Vladimir Putin, various people in the Russian government, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of people say it's not nearly enough based on the severity of the actions undertaken by Putin. But nonetheless, I just lay that as a groundwork for our next guest, and we welcome in Steve Eubanks, contributor to DailySurge.com, Sports Illustrated writer and contributor to Sports Illustrated, Golf Digest, Fox Sports, best-selling, New York Times best-selling author. And Steve, welcome.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be with you.
Well, it's my pleasure, and you got a great first name. I neglected to mention that. All right, so you have come up with a proposal as it relates to sports, and you say if you really want sanctions that bite, and if you really want to carry the sanction thing out, then the U.S. should ban Russian hockey players from the NHL.
Sure. Look, I mean, you can debate whether or not sanctions make sense, and there are good arguments to make on both sides. But if you decide you're going to go with sanctions, you got to hit them where they live. You don't sanction some bureaucrat nobody's ever heard of who may or may not have any assets in the United States at all. You got to go for what the Russian people care about. They really care about their hockey over there. You want to pressure the citizenry to put pressure on Putin, then you sanction the players that are in the NHL. There are 33 of them. And look, those guys are all very good friends with the president, and they would certainly get his attention if suddenly their visas were revoked and their debit cards didn't work anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, of course, the most prominent of the Russian hockey players is probably certainly one of, if not the best players in the league, and that's Alex Ovechkin on the Washington Capitals. And not only, he plays in Washington, so it would make a big impact publicity-wise and otherwise. But how many other Russian hockey players are we talking about?
Yeah, the total's 33. They have 33 total, and I got to believe that if you did this with all of them, that there would be more than a few who would say, you know what, I don't like what Putin's doing either, and I would like to stay here, please. So I think that certainly you would at least start a conversation at the ground level about what's going on over there in a way that the Russian people are not getting the news now, and in a way that they care about. I mean, look, if you want to have sanctions, the purpose for them is to affect the citizens in a way that the citizens put pressure on the leaders. This does it. I just think that the route we're going is more than useless. It's laughable. And that's why the Russians are laughing at us all the way to Kiev.
Absolutely. And, you wonder about the silence. And it disturbs me as a huge hockey fan, huge Devils fan. I remember back when I was hosting Sports Talk for WABC back in the 80s. And this was when the Soviet players were first starting to infiltrate into the NBA and the NHL. Just a smattering of them. And I didn't start a group. I was the president, the only member in the whole thing, but I called it Poses. People opposing Soviets entering sports in the U.S. And USA Today did a little write-up on it. And my objection was, we were still in the Cold War, and I said, if you got these Soviet players coming in, and teams are paying their salaries, and fans are showing up and helping those teams pay their salaries by buying a ticket, then in effect, even if it's a cent or two on the dollar, you're symbolically giving money to the Soviet Union and the Soviet Army, who's in a Cold War with the United States. It didn't make sense to me, and this doesn't make sense to me. I think you're right on target here, but just as the league didn't care then, NHL, NBA, I don't think the leagues are going to care now.
No, they're not going to care now. The league cares about having the best players in their league so that they can sell tickets and continue to prosper. And you're right. I mean, look, Ovechkin's the best player in hockey, and arguably the best player we've had in many years. It'd be a heck of a statement if he were sent home, certainly considering his friendship with Putin and the fact that at the Olympic Games, there was only one event that Putin never missed, and it was the Russian hockey.
Yeah,
it's a big deal over there, and I think if we want to make a statement, that's the best way to do it.
All right, now let's go to the NBA for a second here. This is another issue. The owner of the New Jersey Nets, and my son and I happen to be Nets fans, recently stated, according to Reuters, that he was going to repatriate the company that owns the Nets, his company that owns the Nets, to Russia at the behest of a dictate by Putin to be in compliance with that, and that was in response to Obama instituting sanctions on some Russian people. So you got the owner of the Nets siding with Putin. Now, this guy ran against Putin in the presidential election. Of course, that was a fair election, and he's been critical of Putin, but nonetheless, he's come out in support of Putin. And again, I have called the NBA 3 times, third being just before we started this interview, and I've begged them for a response, for a statement, anything, no comment even. I've heard nothing back because the league has to say something about this. Either we don't care, or this is outrageous, or no comment. Would you agree?
You know, I would think they would eventually have to. And look, I understand that people hate mixing sports and politics. You know, I just remember Michael Jordan used to always say, I never come out on a political side because 50% of the people who disagree with me still buy sneakers. So I understand the reluctance to enter that fray. But look, these people, this is part of the deal. I mean, this is a Russian citizen who owns an NBA franchise who is moving his country back to the motherland. I mean, something has to be said about this, just as I think something has to be said of all the Russian athletes who are making a pretty good living over here right now.
Yeah, no, I could not agree more, and it's going to be very interesting to see. What has been the reaction to your column and your proposal? I mean, you know, whether or not you've gotten any reaction from anybody within the NHL officially, or from just the hockey world unofficially, or other sports writers. What do they look at you cockeyed?
Yeah, you know, I'm getting. Of course, I'm getting sort of the typical reaction, you're crazy, what are you talking about, you know, this will never happen. That last point I agree with. It will never happen. I mean, there's no doubt that Obama is never going to take this very seriously, and he's certainly not going to sanction the most popular Russians in the country. But truly, I think this is one of those things where the more people think about it, the more they realize, hey, you know, there's something to this. If you want to get them, hit them where they live, and this is exactly where the Russian people live.
All right, well, we got you. I'd be foolish not to ask you a very general question. You've probably been asked it a million times. Is it safe to say, I mean, of course, anything could happen, but if you were a betting man, would you bet that Tiger Woods is never going to win a major again?
You know, I've been asked that a lot, and I would have to say, yeah, I had always thought that Tiger would win another major, and in fact, I had been one that predicted that he would win at least one more. But given his back and the knee surgeries that he's had, and quite frankly, the state of his golf swing right now, I'm really falling into that camp where 14 might be it for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm far from a golf aficionado. I don't play the game at all, which is my fault. But I just don't even, you know, they constantly harp the interest, and if Tiger's leading after the second round by some miraculous account, or a few strokes back after 3 rounds, it's like, oh, maybe Tiger will win, and he's won some minor tournaments here and there. But I just think after a while, I think he'll retire. He doesn't need the money. And I think, tell me if you agree with me, when he realizes that the landscape is the way you just laid it out, that he'll just stop rather than, I hate to say embarrass himself, but go out the way he's going out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, look, his body is breaking down, and he keeps having birthdays. So, I mean, as he continues to age, these major championships become more and more difficult, and he is just not striking the ball as well as the rest of the players on tour right now. He's not in the top, I don't think, 5 or 6 in his ball striking.
Hey, Steve, pleasure talking to you, sir. Thank you very much, and let me know if there's any new developments on your proposal here.
Thanks, Steve. Good to talk to you.
Thank you. Steve Eubanks, ladies and gentlemen, contributor to DailySurge.com, Sports Illustrated, Golf Digest, Fox Sports, and New York Times best-selling author as well. Look, I'll let you know as soon as I get word back from the NBA. They've got to get back to me eventually here because this is ridiculous. They probably have no idea what to say because anything they say is you know, could be taken by a political conservative such as myself and torn apart. How do you permit a guy to own an NBA basketball team and then say, I favor Putin? I mean, the NBA, you don't have a right to own an NBA team. It's a closed league. It's a closed club. So, mix. I call it poly sports. On the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax Television.
The Steve Malzberg Show.